Who gets stuff when you die?
Who gets stuff when you die?
Who gets stuff when you die?
Like the way that you say it, though. The way that you said it is like, where does stuff go when you die? Who gets it?
No,
like someone who has no concept of how wills work. Who'll get my stuff when I die?
Yeah.
Oh boy, I guess I never really thought of that. I don't have underlings, aka children. Probably you and Seth, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, now I get to ask, what do I get in your will?
Oh, nothing, Kyle. I have 18 children.
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Emily Moyers and Kyle Imperatore take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Hey everybody, welcome to Butter No Parsnips. I'm Kyle Imperatore.
And I'm Emily Moyers.
And today I think I'm going to be getting something in a will. I don't know.
No, we're going to kill you.
Oh, that's better.
Kyle, would you like a word? Because I have one.
Yes, Emily, please lay a word on me.
The word, Kyle, is moiety. M-O-I-E-T-Y. Moiety. Moiety.
Moiety. Moiety.
Yeah, there's a Brooklyn joke in here somewhere.
Right? Moiety. It's hard, though, because, like, none of
you gotta, like, reverse engineer it.
Yeah. Yeah, you really do.
Put pronunciation back in.
Yeah. Moiety. Hey, okay, ready?
Yeah, Kyle's got a Whopper, everybody. Strap in.
I went to England and they wouldn't give me any moiety.
Sure. Yeah, that worked.
Okay, so, all right. Moiety. Right off the bat, the ety ending makes me think of, like, propriety or sedentary. No, that's not one that ends in ty. Modesty.
Sure.
So, is this adjectival?
The words that you just said are not adjectives.
No, modest would be, but modesty is a noun. Is it a noun?
It is a noun, as is propriety.
Yes. So it's like a state of being.
It is, yes.
A concept.
It is not a state of people being.
Oh, okay.
But it is a state of being.
That's helpful. Well, you know, that suffix I'm going to guess is Latin or Greek, but that prefix, boy, I'm going to need a little help with that.
Yeah, so here's the tricky thing. It sort of journeyed from the original root word. If I told you the original root word, it would help you a lot more, but it's not super guessable from what you're looking at here with moiety.
Yep. Is it at all related to French?
It is. We got it through French from Latin.
All right. Now I'm trying to think of, like, what crazy French conjugations could have happened.
Yeah, in French, it's moitié. It's spelled a little different in French, but...
Boy, all right. I mean, I've got nothing to go on here, so I'm going to take a guess. It's like the state of something being immovable is moiety. It's moietyness.
No. Would you like a little hint?
Give me a hint, Emily.
The hint I have is split.
Split. Is this biological?
It is not.
Is it geological?
It is not. It is more general.
It is generological.
It is. Would you like me to tell you the Latin root that it's from? That will help you too.
Sure, yeah, why not? I'm not going to turn down help.
If we go way, way back, it comes from the classical Latin medius.
Is this like the state of something being entertaining?
No, that is not what medius means. Remember, split.
Is it in the middle? It's the state of something being in the middle?
So a moiety is a
split down the middle?
No.
being cut in half?
You just said it. A moiety is a...
Oh, is a half?
Is a half. You got it.
What? Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So in its purest definition, a moiety is very simply a half. Over time, it has been used more broadly to mean one of multiple parts into which something is divided. Often, but not necessarily two parts, and also not necessarily equal parts in its wider use.
This is a crazy word. I gotta be honest.
So that definition, it makes it sound more complicated than it is. Basically, it refers to a share or a portion. So if you and I were to share a cookie, we would each get a moiety of that cookie.
Yeah, but it's like a crazy word just to say.
Yes.
I can't imagine anyone even 100, 200 years ago being like, would you like a moiety of my cookie?
Well, we'll talk about the ways it was used. It had some specific use cases.
Yeah, tell me.
And still does. Kyle, the word moiety was cited in English as early as the 15th century and is still currently in use in certain contexts. But the sort of peak of its usage was around the mid-16 through mid-1800s. It was more commonplace in that span. As I said, our English word was borrowed from the Middle French moitié, which is Moytie with an acute accent. That is descended from the Old French métier, both of which meant half. And that was inherited from the late Latin mediatas, which originally meant the center or midpoint or middle of something, and somehow later evolved to mean half. Not sure I quite get that.
Well, because like if you're telling somebody to cut something in the middle, you're going to get halves.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, that's my middle, you know?
Sure.
You know.
It's like close, but not quite the same.
Yeah.
So it feels like a weird transition. But regardless, mediatas was descended from classical Latin medius, from which English gets a bunch of words. They're very easy to spot. They pretty much all have med and mean something related to being in the middle. Kyle, I bet you can buzz through 3 right now.
Middle. Median.
Not middle. Middle and the prefix mid are both Germanic, not Latin.
Interesting.
But median is one.
Remedial?
No, not remedial. I think that comes from another root related to remedy. Like a cure.
Remedy. Sure.
But medial means relating to the middle.
Sure.
So that one does.
Sure. All right. I think I'm at my max here. What else is
what
there?
About intermediary? Or mediate? Or medieval? Or mediocre? Or Mediterranean?
Oh.
All of those.
Wow. Wait, I'm sorry. Mediocre? Is that in the middle of ochre?
No. The Latin ocris means rugged mountain. So mediocris means of middle height or degree.
Oh,
it's like halfway up the mountain.
And
not
so
quite
mediocre
at the peak.
Is like, it's not the peak, it's not the base, it's just in the middle.
We just got halfway up the mountain.
That is what we started referring to, boring things.
Something of subpar quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kyle, medium is also related.
Oh, yes, of
As
course.
early as the 1500s, medium meant a person or thing that acts as an intermediary, like a medium that talks to the spirits, but also just more generally any like agent or substance through which something happens. It sits in the middle of a process. So for example, paint is a medium for making art. The New York Times is a medium for disseminating information. Instagram is a medium for socializing. Now we have terms.
That's what we use it for.
But now we have terms like social media, which is technically plural, referring to a group of social mediums.
Wow.
But in colloquial use, we treat it as a mass noun referring to sort of the whole idea together.
Wait, but is that also where we get media in the sense of just like entertainment?
Because they are like agents
mediums
of
for entertainment.
Mediums for
wow. Yeah. That is stunning, Emily.
Yep.
That is great. That is a great connection.
All those words come from middle. And alongside all of that, there was that shift in Latin from middle to half, resulting in the French moitié and the English moiety.
I'm excited to find out why.
So let's begin at the beginning. In its oldest and purest sense in English, a moiety refer to one of two equal parts. And under that definition, the word has seen quite a lot of legal and financial use.
That makes sense. I can see how this falls into the will that we were talking about earlier.
Yes, and it sort of feels like one of those legalese words that's just sort of like unnecessarily fancy.
It's like, you're going through a divorce and, you only get a moiety of the kids. And it's like, wow, I
did not think you were going to go for children there.
But of course, I'm sorry, underlings, I should say.
Yeah. And actually, I was looking into why legalese has so many like fun Latin terms. And it comes from the fact that like a lot of like our system of law is rooted in Roman law from when they invaded. So it just carries a lot of like Latin influence.
When they invaded New York.
When they invaded New York, yes.
Yeah. That was a fun time. That sounds like, wow.
It's like a bad time travel movie.
Yeah, when the Romans invaded New York.
It's just called that. That's the title. Yeah. So going back to at least the 15th century, moiety has been used to refer to like a half portion or half ownership of some interest or asset. So if like you say in a divorce, you might say like, I get a moiety of all you own or something. The word is often used specifically in reference to land, historically at least. The OED lists several quotes discussing moieties of land being inherited by siblings or divided among a king's lords. For instance, in this quote from the Chronicle of Repton, which is an English village, the chronicle was written around 1450, but this particular quote discusses events of the 1200s. The 6th Earl of Chester, Ranulph de Blondeville, gave land to the 4th Earl of Derby, William de Ferrers. This is more historical context than everyone needs, but I did all this Googling and you have to know it.
We need to know. In fact, I think this is the next OJ trial biopic.
He gifted him land when William married Ranulph's sister as, I guess, like her dowry, and he gives them half of 100, which is a portion of a county. The quote reads, Ranulph gave unto William Ferrers the moiety, or 1/2 of the said 100 of Reppington, in marriage with Agnes, his sister.
Okay, the way that is written makes it sound like he gave him the moiety that contained Agnes, his sister.
Well, I was trying to figure out whose sister Agnes is, because it just says his, yes. But there were two men in that sentence. Doesn't tell who's getting married and whose sister is whose. So the reason I know exactly which Ranulph and Willem that is because I was trying to find who's married to Agnes. And who's Agnes's brother.
Wow.
I mean, also, this is... apparently in ye olden times, Agnes could also be given the nickname Alice.
Yeah,
so
of course,
that made
Emily.
It way harder.
It's 1-to-1, all right?
The way nicknames should be, the same number of syllables and all different letters.
Don't you remember the maid from the Brady Bunch, Alice, also sometimes called Agnes? Agnes in Wonderland, these famous characters.
What if that was what she was called instead?
Agnes in Wonderland, there would not be movies.
No one would read
Lewis Carroll would just be a pedophile, and that's it. Not, but he was quirky. He wrote fun. I'm just like, oh no, he's gross. Also, can we go back just for a second? It's called the Chronicle of Repton?
Yes. Well, it was just like the historical chronicle of this village.
I know, but the Chronicle of Repton sounds like Reptar's lore, you know?
Like Repton is the place he's from, like the planet.
He's from Repton. Emily just found out recently that they're making new Rugrats episodes, so this is our call to Rugrats to make a Chronicle of Repton
to incorporate
episode.
This lore.
Yeah.
Kyle, there are also a bunch of quotes in the OED talking about moieties of sums of money. For instance, there's one from circa 1715 in which historian Bishop Gilbert Burnet talks about events in the wake of the English Civil War. I'm not going to get too in the weeds of the history here, but one of the parties in that war was this group who signed a covenant in favor of a Presbyterian Scotland. The Covenanters lost that fight and were fined But the king at the time, Charles II, was trying to garner loyalty amongst his people. And Burnet writes, all were required to bring in one moiety of their fines, but the other moiety was forgiven those who took the declaration renouncing the covenant.
Oh, wait. Okay. So everybody had to bring in half of their fines, but people who renounced it didn't have to.
Didn't have to pay the other half.
So, but the people who didn't renounce it had to bring in both halves.
Still owed another half, yeah.
A terrible way of putting that.
Yeah, but there were lots of quotes that talked about like one moiety and the other moiety because it just meant half and half.
Can we talk about what the Bishop Gilbert Burnet show would look like?
It might not be pronounced like that. It might be Burnet or something. It's not spelled E-T-T-E.
A bishop dressed as a washerwoman, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And then he does
doing
a
bits
dance.
with Tim Conway.
And then he sings the song at the end of the night that's like we're done with the show song.
Yeah, it's called You Won't Have to Pay This Moiety If You Renounce Your
covenant.
Presbyterianism. Yeah. It's a real toe tapper.
You should see it.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, those were two very specific historical examples. But again, broadly, a moiety can be half of any interest. And in law, the word is still very much in use, in law and in business. There is something called a moiety title, which is like a joint ownership of a property. Found lots of business articles about whether or not moiety titles are a good idea. And it's just generally...
I didn't even know I had to think about that.
The prevailing opinion seemed to be you want to avoid moiety titles. But it's just generally one of those legalese terms. It just means like a part of some asset or a share in some interest. And in modern use, it often means half, but not necessarily. Could just mean a part. But now, Kyle, let's widen out and let's skim through some other definitions and use cases that this word has had. On the subject of not necessarily half, broadening from its original definition, moiety has been used to mean a part of a larger whole. And stemming from that sense, the word then sort of re-specified to mean a smaller part, or even just a smaller amount.
Oh, like when you pull the wishbone, but you don't get the bigger piece.
Yeah,
That's
you
the
got
moiety.
the moiety of the wishbone.
Yeah.
I have a beautiful quote from a 19th century satire called The Age Reviewed by Robert Montgomery. I think just sort of a satire of that time.
That's great. Just to put this in perspective, I looked into a lot of 1800s plays at one point in my life, and there were a lot, like, there just became a thing where it was like, let's just mock the year. And they called it something reviewed, you know?
Sure. So this is, reviewed. I guess, one of those.
Yeah, and I'm just so excited for what this could be.
Robert Montgomery writes, literature is now degraded far below trade. Everybody pretends to a moiety of lettered wisdom. Every fool can write and every ass a critic.
And every ass a critic. You tell him. You tell him.
I was trying to look up the phrase everybody's a critic to see if, like, this is where it comes from. I couldn't tell. I like every ass a critic, though. That's funnier.
That's funnier and sharper, you know?
Yes. Believe it or not, Kyle, this word can get even smaller than small, though. Wow. I'm talking molecular. Because as early as 1935, and still to this day, moiety is used in the field of chemistry and biochemistry, referring to a group of atoms forming a distinct part of a larger molecule, often a part that like creates the characteristic chemical reaction of that molecule.
Sure, yeah.
When talking about the chemistry of drugs, pharmacology, the active moiety is the part of the molecule that like makes the drug do the thing. It like makes it react in your body.
Interesting.
And moiety and active moiety are sometimes used interchangeably with the term functional group, but there are some subtle differences between the two terms. I was talking with my medical student friend about it, and we were trying to suss out exactly what the difference is. It's very nitty-gritty.
Do you think that there was a lawyer who became a chemist, and that's how that
transfer happened?
Yeah.
He said, well, the moiety of the molecule. And everybody's like, what?
I need to get in something less stressful than law. How about splitting atoms? Nothing could go wrong there.
Kyle, I have no segue into this bit. It's just going to be out of left field. Because the word moiety is also used in cultural anthropology.
Okay, all right.
In areas where a society is divided into two primary social groups, those groups can sometimes be referred to as moieties.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Elaborate.
It was used in this sense as early as 1883. The first quote that the OED lists from an article in the Journal of the Royal Anthropological Institute.
Card-carrying member.
So you'll be familiar with this. Yeah. There's an article where they're sort of visualizing a society by, quote, separating the whole into its two constituent moieties. So the example that I was thinking about was the Hutus and the Tutsis.
Wow, that's a sad one.
It's just that's the one that came to mind.
Oh God, Emily, there's a civil war.
I
know,
so
many people died.
But it's, yeah.
You could do a less sad civil war like the British Civil War, which we talked about earlier.
Well, but the term is typically used in reference to certain cultures, often indigenous cultures, namely certain indigenous peoples in North America, Australia, and Indonesia. But not specifically Africa, but that was the one that popped into my head.
As denoted by Europeans.
Yes, which is why we're not going to look at any specific quotes because they all feel very looking at people in a box.
We'll want to wash our eyes and ears if we look at any of these quotes. Fair.
And the term also, it often comes up when speaking about exogamy, which is marriages outside of a person's own social group.
Oh, so like talking about how somebody might marry from another moiety?
Yes.
I think if anybody ever talked about me that way, I don't know how I would respond, to be honest.
Well, you're not in a society that is divided into two distinct social groups.
That's what you think. There are the Kyles and there are the non-Kyles.
Oh, can I guess which one you're in?
Yeah, go ahead, guess. You'll never get it.
Kyle, speaking of marriage, that segue won't make sense until a few minutes from now. Fun. Alongside the English moiety, the French moitié also had continued use and is in fact still used in modern French to mean half. There is a subtle difference in usage between moitié and demi, which also means half, but is often used as part of hyphenated words. Like if you wanted to say a half bottle, you would say une demi-bouteille. But if you wanted to say half of the bottle, you would say la moitié de la bouteille.
Oh, sure. I mean, that makes sense because we wouldn't use demi as a word in English, You would say demigod, you wouldn't say he's demi-a-god.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
You would say demi-moore, you wouldn't say...
She's half of a Moor.
Demi-Moore, you'd say Demi-Moore. She's half of a... She's Demi of a Moor. Demi Lovato would have made more sense, but...
I mean, Demi, it's the same letters,
Demi sounds more French, I guess.
And the French moitié can have a similar versatility as our English word half, and is even used as part of the same idioms. Kyle, any guesses about what voir le verre à moitié plein translates to? I'm so sorry for my French. What if I said it's the opposite of voir le verre à moitié vide?
Is it like the glass is half empty or the glass is half full?
You got it, Kyle.
That's fun.
Yeah, it is to see the glass half full and to see the glass half empty. And French speakers use that phrase the same way that we do, meaning optimistic and pessimistic. In that case, French is borrowing from English. We're not 100% sure where that phrase originates, but definitely in English. A guy called Josiah Stamp popularized it in a speech in 1935, but a similar metaphor with a half full, half empty gas tank appears as early as 1929. But we're not sure from where.
It makes sense that the French didn't use demi for that, because then that would be a demi glass. And that's sauce, I think.
I think they'll also use a bottle, like half full, or a bottle half empty, in addition to a glass. But glass is more common, I think. What about, Kyle, if I referred to ma fière moitié or ma plus chère moitié?
Plus chère, half a plushie.
That's two words. Plus cher.
Plus cher. More love. Ma chère. Ma chérie. Is it like half wife, half stepmother?
No, cher means dear. My sherry is my dear.
Okay, plus cher is more love, half
or most
love. See, I'm figuring out grammar as we talk. Most, I'm still grasping at straws.
Well,
here,
remember
though.
what the moitié is. Moitié.
Half.
So
my
dearest half.
Oh, like my other half.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, you got it. So those two phrases literally translate to my proud half or my dearest half, but they have the same meaning as the English my other half or my better half, referring to one's partner or spouse.
That's so adorable.
Yeah, and all of those phrases go back to the late 15, early 1600s.
Wow.
Yes, they are old phrases.
Wow. So they did love people back then.
Sometimes. And they actually go all the way back to a classical Latin phrase, anime dimidium mei, literally half of my soul, describing an idea akin to a soulmate. Consequently, actually, all of the Romance languages have some version of the phrase my better half, referring to one's perfect partner.
I mean, that's why they're called Romance languages, am I right?
Hey! It's not. It comes from Roman, but yes.
Oh. You only know that because the Romans invaded New York.
Funnily enough, Kyle, the words better and half are both Germanic words, not from Latin. So we're the only ones that didn't get that from I guess we did because we translated it, but we used our Germanic words instead of our Romance words.
Listen, there were a lot of people mixing at one point, and so you can't keep it all. Although we do have French and German words for all foods, all meats. So I guess we did keep a lot more than we needed.
Yes. Case in point, Kyle, the reason I bring all of this up is that as early as 1611, the word moiety has also been used in English to humorously refer to one's spouse. My moiety.
My moiety. Oh, Emily, that's my favorite part of this episode.
Oh, Kyle, it's about to get even better. I've got a hilarious quote from a 19th century novel called The Wilderness and the Warpath by James Hall.
I can't imagine anything hilarious coming from this.
So in this quote, a character, Mrs. Featherton, can tell that her husband is hiding something and wants to get the truth out of him. And the novel says, quote, Mrs. Featherton saw at a glance that something had happened to her helpmate, more than he was willing to confess, and she determined to bring her inferior moiety to auricular confession.
Auricular confession?
Auricular, like oral, like verbal confession.
Funny. So funny. My inferior moiety. That's so good. That's really good.
Now, Kyle, my podcasting moiety. I've given you all also that I have on this word, and I'm determined to bring you to auricular demonstration. Can you use moiety in a sentence?
Of course I can, Emily. What a good word. So useful. Let's see. So, I went to the barber once, and I sneezed while he was buzzing my sideburns, and I wound up with a moiety of baldness.
Moiety there meaning a little bit or a half your head?
A half of my head.
Boy, that was a real sneeze, huh?
Yeah, it was a big buzzer.
Excellent sentence, Kyle. Let's play a game. Kyle, the game I've got for you is called Milk or Half and Half.
Ooh. Neither.
I've got a few phrases here which are French expressions that employ the word moitié or half. And I will give you the literal translations, but I want you to guess what the expression means.
Okay, sure.
I'm so sorry again for my French. If anyone's watching who speaks French better than me, I'm doing the best that I can.
And if there's anyone watching that speaks French worse than Emily, bow to her, you know?
That's right.
She's practiced real hard.
I have. Sure. Kyle, the first one I have is moitié chair, moitié poisson, or half flesh, half fish.
Yeah, I knew poisson from
Little Mermaid.
Yeah. Half flesh, half fish. Is it a mermaid?
Or like half meat, half fish. No, it's an expression.
It's not mermaid.
No.
It's an expression.
Yes.
He's half meat, he's half fish, which means
I don't think you would describe. I guess you could describe a person.
Oh, because I was gonna say like somebody who like likes to swim a lot. You know, it's half meat, it's half fish.
Sure. I will say that this is a less common version of the phrase in French, the more common being neither flesh nor fish.
Neither flesh nor fish nor sleet nor snow can keep us from our... What's
the U.S. Postal Service
motto? Yeah. God, that's if zombies and mer people took over the planet, huh? I'm at a loss here, Emily.
All right, you give in on this one?
I think so, yeah.
So neither flesh nor fish, or half flesh, half fish, can be used in the same way that we say neither fish nor fowl, meaning not fitting into any category.
Oh,
which is an old-timey phrase, admittedly.
Sense.
That was the hardest.
Sure.
I started you on the hardest one. It gets easier from here.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Thank you.
Kyle, the next one I've got is moitié guerre, moitié merchandise, or half war, half merchandise.
I guess guerre is war, half merchandise, and that is, I think it's just the motto of the military-industrial complex.
I mean, you're kind of right. It originally referred to merchant ships armed to defend themselves, but it proverbially means something else.
Is it like, does it refer to people?
It does.
Is it like business in the front, party in the back? Is it that? Is that what it means?
Yeah, it does mean a mullet. No, it refers to someone who maybe gets what they want by less savory means or semi-savory means. So that I think like kind of Machiavellian.
Oh, sure.
You know?
Like the ends justify the means.
Sure.
He's half war, half merchandise.
Yeah. Like he'll he's willing to get dirty.
Yeah. And to sell your soul for it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Kyle. Last one. This one I promise you'll get.
Okay, we'll see.
The last one is moitié-moitié, or half-half.
Like so-so?
Yeah, exactly.
So-so.
So it can be used how we might say 50-50, like you might share something.
Oh, sure.
Moitié-moitié. But it can also be used how we might say so-so, like how was the film? Yeah, moitié-moitié.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Honestly, I want to say moiety.
Yes, we
People
should start
think I'm
saying that
casting
in
a
English.
spell.
Yeah.
Emily, wow, stunning. This episode is, I think, going to, when people look back, they're going to say it was in the superior moiety of all of the Butter No Parsnips episodes.
Which is the Latin version of better half, because those are two Latin-derived words instead of two Germanic-derived words.
Look at that, Emily, and I did that on purpose.
I know you did, buddy, because we're so smart.
Because we're so smart. And everybody at home is so smart because they know that they can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips, that they can find us on other social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips Podcast, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if they liked today's episode, they are so sure that they can give us a 5-star rating or review wherever they heard us.
And if you really liked today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast.
Thanks so much to all of you. You help us make what we make.
And with that, I've been Emily Moyers.
And I've been Kyle Imperatore, and this has been Butter No Parsnips.
Butter No Parsnips is produced by Seth Glicksman, Kyle Imperatore, and myself, Emily Moyers. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperatore.